Welcome to the Fecal Chatter Podcast, where we are talking all the ish you want to hear and putting our own stank on it. Gossip, news, politics, personal experiences, we are sharing it all unapologetically honest from our authentic point of view. I was always told it's better out than in, so get your air freshener ready, turn on your fan exhaust, close the door, and light a match, because we're about to let it rip. Let's get ready for the Fecal Chatter Podcast. Hey!
Hello.
So our topic in this first episode of the Fecal Chatter Podcast is passion or not to passion over the age of 35. Do you want to follow your passion, the passion that's been leading you, what you feel like you always wanted to do and never actually did at the age or over the age of 35? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that before I turned 35, I had absolutely no clue about anything in the entire universe. So any decision I made basically led to not good decisions in other areas. So now that I'm over the age of 35, I actually feel like I can make a decision that won't be so flushing stupid. So I'm all for it.
Well, and so basically, like a lot of people who are over 35 years old, they're stuck in a career that once fulfilled them, and now it's not as fulfilling. It's not the dream job. They're just working to get a check or support their family, and it's something totally different than what they expected, what it started out to be. They had a fire in their belly maybe when they started, or maybe they just fell into it for financial reasons. But there's something that burns in them every single night, something that they want to do, and they're not doing it. But at the age of 35, you have responsibilities. There's so many things that are, maybe you have a job with a 401k plan, life insurance is built into your job, a pension plan that's already done. Life insurance is started out, if it's in a job, it's attached to your job. Once you lose that job, you no longer have that life insurance anymore. And you have to start again. And now you're older with more health problems, which means you might have more expensive policy. It's going to cost you more money at whatever age you are now, over 35, than it would have when you started that job 10 years prior. So these are the things that, could be bothering. You can have people that you're supporting, kids, relatives. There's so many things that can go on, and also you don't have that safety net that you once had. And actually, that's what my surprise is for you actually today. I'm surprising you on this first episode because I like to surprise people. First of all, it's something fun for me to do. And I said, since this topic is so wide and so brass, there's actually people out there in the world that have actually done this, like actually had a job, had a career, made a lot of money, doing something that they really don't love and it's not fulfilling them inside. And they've actually decided to leave all that money behind to follow their real passion. So since that's part of our topic, I said, what better way than to bring a guest on to talk about it? I thought that was really good.
Who's this exciting new person that's appearing on our new podcast?
It's Precious Detina.
Woo! I don't know who she is, but I love her name.
Yes, I actually, hey, Precious, I actually put you on as a surprise guest. So I ambushed Ito with you today just to make it fun and to keep her on her toes.
With people named Precious.
That'll be fun for your listeners too.
Hi.
I have mentioned her to you before, but I didn't tell her that you were going to be on today. So I thought it would be very fun. Precious also has her own podcast called the Unmothered and Unbothered Podcast. It's very good. She's actually, which is on a different topic than what she's here to talk about today, but she wasn't raised by her mother, and there's a lot of trauma that affected her in her life and her daily adult life. And she kind of breaks that down with the walk. Is that how you would describe it, Precious?
Yes, I I use that trauma to help other women now, since I've kind of done a lot of work and in a completely different place with my mom now. So I just kind of use it as a way to encourage other women, let them know that they're not alone and that they can have like peace on the other side of it.
Exactly. And I also, I mean, that's something different for me, but that's something I wasn't raised by. I was like, listening to her podcast one day. And it's so funny. My grandmother raised me, so she was like my mother. And I didn't realize until like listening to her podcast that I also was unmothered. My grandmother was my mother, but since I consider her my mother, I never felt like I was missing it. But I did have a very tumultuous relationship with my mother because my grandmother was the one that actually raised me. So there's like an interesting dynamic to that. But actually, Precious is here to talk about today. So you definitely want to follow her podcast, the Unmothered and Unbothered Podcast.
An experienced podcaster here.
Yes.
Teach us a few things.
Yeah, she asked me over the text. She said, "How are you going to introduce me?" I said, "Oh God, it's our first episode. We're just winging it here. We're learning as we go. We're just going to wing it."
There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Because I think people think you got to have everything together. Microphone has to be correct. You have to have this background, which I see that you are in your fecal background.
Yes, I am.
And I love it.
Fecalist background.
If you wait till you have everything together, you will never start. So whatever.
Thank you for saying that, because that's exactly how I felt. You got to launch. I've been talking about it for so long. I've been stressed about it for so long because this subject, to passion or not to passion over 35, resonates with me because that's kind of where I am. I've been doing insurance for 15 years. I've been working at my current job almost 8 years. And the pandemic shook up everything that I know about the insurance industry and how I do my business. And it's made me feel very alone in it because I'm used to a team. Insurance is very team-based. Though I talk to my clients, we have our systems, and it's totally been broken down. It's totally and I felt more out of place. I was always in control of my career. I was always in control of it. And even though it wasn't the dream job, most 5-year-olds and that you ask, they don't say, "I want to be an insurance agent," when I grow up. But it's something that I fell into and I was good at. I was always good at it. And insurance is in every industry. So it's needed. It's a relevant career. And if you do it right, it could pay very well. But it started to miss something. And what I realized for me personally recently is I realized that, I was missing the connection of people and also my extracurricular things outside that made this job more fulfilling. If you kind of like, everything is like a circle and everything you have to everything you in your life kind of fits like in a pie, like a slice of that pie. And when something is missing, and for me, entertainment, hanging out, making friends and connections, that's all been missing. It all only was based on work. My job felt less fulfilling. If that makes any sense. It felt like I wasn't fulfilled by that.
Wait, I have a clarifying question. Do you feel that the pandemic specifically has pushed you to realize that because you haven't had all the social interactions that you need to like do something like have a comedy podcast, and that's going to be something that like you may not have done this had the pandemic not hit?
Yes, no, that's definitely, they say like a lot of multimillionaires or a lot of people who find their true passion find it in this and things like this and difficulty and moments where you're pushing comfort is like the biggest distraction to success sometimes, because you get in your comfort zone, and when you're comfortable, who doesn't like to be comfortable? I'm in my comfy chair. Why do I want to move? But if this chair had a pin sticking me in my fanny, and I'm going to have to get up out this chair eventually unless I want to continually to be poked. So when I got uncomfortable by the pandemic, I started seeing what was missing. But not only that, before the pandemic hit, I was doing things outside of that. I met you in comedy. So I was doing stand-up comedy. I was out there doing more of my other side that made the insurance more fulfilling. But because it was only insurance and I wasn't able to be fully who I am. I can't use all my, some of those jokes aren't appropriate when I'm talking about someone's, disability insurance and paid family leave and all that stuff. They don't want to hear jokes. They want to know how much they're going to get while they're on maternity leave.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So,
right.
you know, I need an outlet for that stuff to make me feel like I'm being who I am all the time. Because I think people see that too. Whatever you do, even if you know everyone's not going to be a basketball player, singer, or some of the jobs that you know are the most are glamorous or glorified, but you can still have a job where you bring in your authentic self and your authentic personality and skills into that position. And if you feel that you're not doing that, then that's when I feel you're going to be, you know, in other words, a miserable bitch.
And you know, comfort level is your comfort. It's just like a mattress, right? So I might like medium firm, you might like soft, you know, it just depends on what you like. And so some people may look at your life or your job, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit when I go into my story, but they may think like, why would you not be comfortable? Like it's definitely something, you're making decent money, it's stable, you don't have to worry about getting laid off, and people don't understand. But comfort varies from person to person, and to me, it's just nobody's business anyway. When it boils down to what makes you happy, it's all about what you're doing. It's not about what other people think.
Right. There's like an societal expectation that like you're supposed to have this kind of job or make this kind of money or work this many hours or see your kids this long. And it's like every single person has to be like, wait a second, what's going on in my world? Do I actually like what I'm doing? Is this actually fulfilling something, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people, especially if you put things on social media and you do things like that, people only see one aspect of your life. So they see the trips. I remember when I used to see Precious out in her job, and she used to be out all the time and dress and fly. And I said, oh, where's she going now? She's off on another trip. She had another hotel. She in another city. And it looks very glamorous to what she's doing. And you're not living it, but you're only seeing that one aspect. You know, no one ever shows, you have to remember, social media is very one-sided. It never shows the full picture. It doesn't show, you know, she's not going to post when she's eating cornflakes in the bed. That's not something post worthy. You know, she's only going to post those really nice meals. So you have to, but in your mind, all you see her is like every single night. Like she wakes up in the morning with caviar on her banana. And you're like, oh, my life sucks. Like, get this French toast out of here. This is crappy. I don't want this. I want to really let go of this ego. I don't want it no more. But now, like, so I do feel like social media comparison is like the biggest thief of joy, they say. To compare yourself to other people's lives, you kind of got to be like that horse with a blinder. And it's hard to do because especially now our faces are in everybody's business. We're looking at everything. And to us, that's their life. But I wanted to actually, let's introduce a little bit, because of Precious, you have our subject, I was just talking about it, to passion or not to passion. And I was talking about some of the obstacles that people may be feeling over the age of 35 when they work a job. And some of the things that, you know, I was saying, they have a 401k, they have a retirement plan, a pension plan, kids to support. They have things that they have to do, you know, maybe like you said, and you brought a great level. Another thing I did not mention, people are depending on them or looking into them, or, you know, they have a family, maybe their family put them through school. I never thought of that. Maybe they helped them and supported them while they were getting that education, and now they feel they're part of their career. And if they were to leave that career, because that's not really the dream job, that's not how they want to spend the rest of their days, you know, how will they look to their family or friends who supported them either financially or just, you know, supporting, you know, with words of encouragement and being there for them through that process. You know, usually, you know, it takes a team or of people to get people to sometimes these levels of successes. So you, Precious, have a couple of notes. I know that you were working, you have a family? I have bad notes.
Family and consumer sciences.
There we go, consumer science degree. I know you had a job that you were working in your 20s, working for the Walgreens company, and you were making very close to six figures, and you were traveling double what you're making now. You were traveling all over the country. You were staying in nice hotels, living a life of of many 20-year-olds' dreams. And you could have continued on further, working, even offered a job in Chicago, which is where the headquarters of Walgreens is, to even expand your career further, but something was missing. And I just want you to touch on that a little bit. First of all, how you felt working there, and then what your dream job was, and what gave you the courage and the strength to make the switch.
Okay, but before I have questions, just to understand more, I'm so excited to hear. But how long were you working for the company in total?
So I have my bachelor's degree, my undergrad degree is in family consumer sciences. And so we had an internship requirement. So I started working for Walgreens at 20, because I graduated from college at 21. And so I worked for them almost at 10 years, right at 10 years. So I started as an assistant store manager for 4, and then a little bit under 6, I was a project coordinator. And that was the position in which I used to travel. And so basically my story, I always start out, me and my friends always talk about how like our parents lied to us, because we're supposed to go to college, get a degree, get out, get this great job that's going to sustain us financially, and it's going to feel good to our souls, get married if that's what we want to do, have kids, whatever, and just live happily ever after. And it just didn't work out like that. And I think a lot of times our parents or our guardians, our grandparents, whoever raised us, they kind of just told us what they thought was the right thing to say, because coming from their era, it was stability. It was being able to take care of your family. And so that's what they told us. And so I just really thought, graduating, I got the job at Walgreens, and I was making good money even as an assistant store manager. But then as I began to travel as a project coordinator in 2007, I traveled 50 out of 52 weeks a year. I was a merchandise coordinator. So I opened new stores. I relocated stores. I facilitated like acquisitions, buyouts, those types of things, and remodels. And I was pretty much, it would take 2 weeks or so to do a basic store opening. If it was a project that lasted, a couple of weeks or a couple of months, I would stay longer, but I was pretty much in a different city every 2 weeks. And our corporate offices were their corporate offices right outside of Chicago in Chicagoland. And so I never really went there because I was a field employee. I worked remotely. So at home, I had a PO box and a storage unit. That's all I had. And I was able to, my salary was definitely double, but what put me over the mark was the fact that I could save, close to $1,000 a month. I didn't have the living expenses. They paid for all the hotels. They paid for all of the meals. And so it was really, really good. I definitely blew off a lot of money. I really sometimes was like, I could have had so much more money saved, but I paid off a lot of debt and stuff like that. I mean, I was living like I didn't have it like that before. So I don't regret it, but it was definitely a good life. And it's funny that you say we didn't see the glimmer. We only saw the glamorous side, but there were times I was in small towns and I'm like, I hate being here. I'm by myself. I don't know anybody. I don't see anybody that looks like me. Oh. Like, this is not fun,
Do you ever play that game, just to interrupt that question? And I don't know if as a Jewish woman you can relate, but I definitely play this game. I played it when I went to Lake George. I play Count the Black People. And I definitely, if I don't feel safe in a community unless I see someone, at least 2 more people that look like me. So if I look around and I don't see another Black person, I'm sitting there having lunch outside and it's been about 20 minutes and there ain't no other Black people, I'll take this to go.
Yeah. Yes, I didn't do it. I didn't know it had a name, but yeah, I did. I had a real bad experience in West Virginia, and everybody's like, oh, West Virginia, of course you did. Right. Yeah. But there's some really beautiful parts of West Virginia. But I was there. It was Elkins, I want to say, in West Virginia. And as I was driving in, it was in the winter and you had to drive up the mountain and down the mountain. Like, that's the way you had to kind of get there. And I stopped and I needed gas really badly. And every gas station I stopped at, there was nobody that looked like me. And when I would pull up, it would be immediate, like, staring, like, who are you?
Yeah.
And I was so scared. 'Cause I'm like, either I'm gonna run out of gas or I don't know. So I eventually stopped, got there, and the nicest hotel was a Super 8. And I'm like, are we kidding? Like, this is, that's one of those things that you didn't see on social media. The nicest place. I'm sorry, they had a Holiday Inn, but the other store employees who came from Pittsburgh to help open the store had already booked up. So the next thing, Super 8. And then the receptionist told me one night, she was real nice. And she said this to me, and I truly believe in my heart that she thinks she was being really nice. She said to me, you're just getting in close to nightfall, and you should be in here by nightfall. And I said, really? I was like, she said, yeah, we haven't seen anybody like you around here in a while. And I was like, I kind of knew what she meant, but I was like playing it. I was like, so you guys hadn't seen a pretty lady, like, and she just kind of looked at me like, and then she said, I will never forget this. If you're not in here by nightfall, if something happened to you, they wouldn't find your body till spring.
She said that to you?
She did.
Wow.
And I could not. And she's right, because it was so much snow. So much snow.
Wow.
It was like a truck stop, like it was just full of truckers and stuff. And I remember that night, I was like, it's too dangerous for you to leave tonight, with the mountains, snow. West Virginia, of course, is right below PA. And I was like, I can go to my aunt's house in Philadelphia, but I gotta wait till the morning. I took a bath. I slept with clothes on. And then I called my boss in Illinois, and I said, by the time you get this, I will be in Philadelphia. Like, I have to leave. And so that's one of those times,
It's funny now, but that's a reality.
What year, like in terms of the 6-year period that you were traveling, how far into it was that?
Let me think real good. That might have been 2009-ish. Yeah. It seems like 2009-ish, 2008, 2009. Because I remember my boss called, and he was like, and he was a white man, but he understood. Like, he wasn't didn't try to make me feel like I was making it up. And he said, I'll swap you. He swapped me with a lady in New Jersey, in South Jersey. So she came down, and I went up. I think it was around 2009-ish.
What year did you leave the job?
I left in 2012.
Oh, okay. So you had a few years to go. Wow, that's terrifying.
Well, that was only one situation, but I as another Black person, I can definitely relate to that. And I could definitely understand how that's happened to me several different times. And not so extreme. I'm sorry, I have a little cousin. Can you hear him? He's like in the bathroom talking very loud. Can you hear him on my microphone?
I didn't. He's yelling. He's yelling.
Even though I muted the microphone, I'm sure you could hear me through the screen.
We didn't hear you, but we saw.
Yeah, you can see the face. Like, I mean, what are you talking so loud for? You're talking on the phone to a kid. It's my 12-year-old little cousin. Sorry for that. Yeah. But I know that experience. We all know. That's another whole other topic. But as being a Black person in America, those things still exist. And just a quick story, how I was trying to lose weight. And I was living in Atlanta and Georgia, but Georgia has its parts, and you never know exactly where you are. And I remember how I was wearing like one of these sweatsuits, and I was walking around the golf course. I didn't know golf courses were so long. There was a golf course near my property. I didn't know they spanned it so far. And now I realize why everyone had a golf cart and nobody in New York, they walk or they take the golf cart. Now I realize why everyone it was like a lake between. I was like, where the hell am I going? Anyway, it started to get dark and there's no lights, and I'm walking, so I'm like, oh, now I'm getting nervous. Like went over like houses and stuff. I don't know, but I've been walking like 3 hours, when you're in one of those moods trying to lose weight. And I had to get home. It was starting to get black, and there's no lights on the golf course at night. So I had to walk through the woods because I saw there was houses, and I had to pick the house that I knocked on very carefully because I'm looking like, I don't know which one of these houses I should knock on, because you don't want to knock on. If you see a Confederate flag, that's not the one. That's not the one. So you got to be very careful. But I found a house to knock on because I had no phone on me. It was just horrible. Like, I didn't think I was setting out for a half an hour walk. 3 hours later, I'm still walking. I thought I would have ended back by then. but you got to be very careful. You know, you never know where you are. And then that you going on their property is a reason that they can shoot you.
Yes.
And not Georgia. Get away with it. And it's Georgia. So they have that stand your ground straight. So Black people, that's conversation that we always have to have with our kids and family. It's a known thing. Be careful, because don't give them the right, to don't turn around because they shoot you in the, if they shoot you in, or turn around because if they shoot you in the front, they can say you were attacking them, kind of thing. But so it's like things you have to know. Going forward, but so you're eating, but I know that was a Super 8 and you weren't staying but you were still traveling. You have you get these new experiences. You're in your 20s, so I mean those are your heyday. I look back at my 20s like memories. Sometimes I lay back at night like, oh man, 20s was good time. So you have all this money. You're traveling the country. Your friends and family are thinking you got the dream gig. You're eating these nice meals. And I saw some nice club pictures. You was doing the damn thing around this country. And what did you feel was missing?
The component for me that was missing was feeling as if I was feeding people, feeling as if I was leaving my mark in the world, and that what I was doing was going to positively and directly impact people. And I did great at the job, and I received awards and different things, but it was not something I would feel like I could leave this earth and feel like I've done everything that I'm supposed to do. And I felt so conflicted because I prayed for this life that I could try. I wanted to travel. I wanted the company cards, and I wanted that. I wanted to be Robin Givens in Boomerang, period. Like, that's it. That's what, and she didn't travel, but she was a bomb boss, and I love that movie. And I've said that since the first time I saw it, but it was this picture I painted for myself that really didn't go with what I needed to feel like I left my mark. And I was meeting a quota, and I was helping a company to meet their goal and to act out their vision, make sure that whatever their mission was accomplished. And it just didn't sit well with me. And I've always wanted to be an educator. And I enjoyed the part of my job in which I educated other people on how to do the job. But it just wasn't the same. And I had wanted to be a teacher for a while. I didn't necessarily want to go back to school. But I was like, I'll just work in post-secondary. I worked for a college university. And so during that time, I got my master's in post-secondary education and online. And I was like, oh, cool. So I'll just find a job and do this. And that didn't work because everybody wants you to have a PhD or maybe.
While you were in the Walgreens job, you began to educate yourself and like think about your future and that you want to be in education, and you were thinking of switching.
Yes, I knew something was going to have to happen. So I went ahead and
you wanted purpose. You wanted to feel like you were being
I didn't feel like I had a purpose. I knew I had a purpose. I didn't feel like what I was doing helped me to live out that purpose.
Fulfilling,
And so I definitely not feeling fulfilled. And so once I received that master's and things didn't go the way I thought, I was like, okay, so I'm sitting on this, still doing this. And people didn't understand. I couldn't have the conversation with everybody because people don't get it. They just like, why? Like, you live great. You have, this money, and you're traveling in a different city. And especially 2010 to 2011, I was in New York City and working on the acquisition of Dwayne Reed. That was fun. And that kept me there one more year, because, before that, I was just like, I got to get out of here. That was,
and they're paying you. And she grew up, even though she moved down south, she grew up in New York. So she had friends already in New York. You're in the greatest, most expensive city in the world, and they're paying the whole bill for you. I would say too, like, hey, let's see what this is. So I can understand why you would say free rent and I could just live out my dreams. Okay.
And I remember every week I had to pay, I would get like my bill, my folio or whatever they called it. And every week my bill that they charged to the American Express was $1,700. And I remember thinking I could never, and so I really just began to appreciate the job. And I felt guilty. Like, why do I want something else if I have this great thing? And I just would pray about it. But I realized that it's not that I'm being ungrateful, because that's what I kind of felt like I was doing.
Yeah.
I wasn't. It's just time was up. Time was
Mm-hmm.
up. And I knew I would use those skills for something else. And so I just began to look at different states I wanted to work in. I did not go to school to be a teacher. Keep that in mind. And so I researched different states in which you can become a teacher or walk into the classroom through an alternative route. And I didn't want to come back to Alabama. That was out. I had traveled too much to come back, but
Mm-hmm.
Alabama was like one of the only, if not the only state that would allow you to walk into the classroom and you could teach whatever you had a degree in while you went to school. You had to prove that you were in school for education, but they would let you start that first year teaching whatever you have a degree in. So for example, my degree was in family and consumer sciences, my undergrad. And so I was a family and consumer sciences teacher. Family and consumer sciences is the old way, the new way to say home economics. And so I was able to teach that. And then, you know, I was going to school at the same time. So I had to come back to Alabama. So what I did was I started to take my teaching tests while I was still working as a project coordinator. I scheduled the two of the teaching tests, one when I was in Indiana, one when I came back to Alabama. I even paid for my own background check. Like, I was like ready to do it. So when I got back to Alabama, like the area to work from home, because another thing that was going on was I knew we couldn't open stores forever. Like, you got to slow down or stop at some point.
Yeah.
So I wanted a plan. And so probably for the last 6 months of me being a project coordinator, I worked from home, which was a hotel room in Birmingham, Alabama, which is where I was living, or, you know, my home base was in Birmingham, because they were running out of stuff. And I just
Didn't they also offer you a job in the home office in Chicago?
Well,
Wasn't that something that was on the
they
table?
sent me before this. They sent me probably in 2000, early 2010, I believe. They sent me to work in the Chicagoland stores. They wanted me to be familiar with projects that were there, to work closer to those bigger projects that were close to
and
corporate
just so everyone knows, all the listeners know, that is the home of Walgreens. Isn't that where the corporation was formed? So usually wherever, just like Coca-Cola was formed in Atlanta, and you go, they got a whole museum for Coca-Cola. It's like built the city. So whenever you go to a town where these multi-billion-dollar companies have been formed, that town is like their town. They own that town pretty much.
Right. And I had worked successfully on so many different projects and rollouts that we had, that I knew they wanted to see how well I would work in that area and kind of just bring me in to kind of do some more things. But that didn't work for me. Like, it was not working remotely and far away was cool. But when you got real close, and like the store manager was the son of the VP of finance, and and I'm just not, it doesn't work for me. Like, my dad is so and so, and I'm like, I don't care about your dad. Like, I don't, so it didn't work for me. They transferred me out to work on the Gulf Coast right when remember the BP oil spill happened, huge deal. That's when they transferred me down there. I was down there on the coast of like Florida and Alabama for months. And I did a rollout there right when that big BP spill happened. So yeah, they did. They tried to get me to, but it didn't work. And I knew, I'm like, yeah.
Did any of these apply to you? I had a couple of things. I was in researching for this topic. I was looking at some signs to leave your job, signs that maybe it's time for you to go. And I don't know, Ita, if you can relate to any of these as well. Maybe you felt in your life.
I actually wanted to open it up. I mean, we don't have to, because if you want, we can focus on career. But for me, it's about more like a lifestyle. Like, are you going to do something drastic to change your life over the age of 35? Or are you just kind of stuck? So like,
it's about your you can definitely.
It's about, for me, it was my marriage and my, my idea of like a, nuclear family or whatever. So it wasn't about career. But anyway, continue.
So yeah, because just to give a little quick background on Ita, she's 38, and she is recently going through a divorce. So she's married, four girls, school-age children at home, living in Brooklyn. So she had this whole life and this whole fantasy of a life. And she saw herself as an older woman, or maybe her husband as an older man, and said, I can't get with this. I can't stay with this. It's time to hightail it, cut my losses and get out of it. And these are all brave decisions, like, because you have a life, and not only does she have a life, but she has lives depending on her, looking up to her. What do? Do you stay in a marriage where you don't love the guy, or do you move on?
It's not about like, for me, it's not about love, not love. It's not about that. It was just like, it's like this similar thing for, I think, for a career or lifestyle or whatever. It's just this idea where you go into something and you think, this is my dream. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to grow old with this person, or I'm going to be successful and reach the top of this job. And I'm going to use that, the money from that job to build the dream that I have, or whatever it is. And that's going to be my identity. And that's going to be, I am a married woman with 4 children, or I am the manager of this large multi-million-dollar, national company, or whatever it is. And then one day you're like, wait, I don't have to do that, actually. Like, it's not working, so I don't have to do that. Like, I know that I made the decision and I committed to doing that, and I really worked hard. Like, you were in the job, you were doing it for 10 years or so. I was married 15 years. I definitely gave it my all, but I also realized one day that, wait a second, I don't actually have to, just because I committed to something when I was 22.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that I'm bound by that for the rest of my life.
What about the fear of failure? Like the feel of not succeeding in whatever that you're trying to do. Like, she wants to be a teacher, but what if it didn't work out? What if that didn't, who's going to support you now? Like, that's a big risk. If you fail, like, who's going to pay your rent? You got an apartment. Who's going to feed you? Yeah. At 20 years old or 21 years old, you have people that are willing, or more willing, because you're a kid. Okay, they're finding themselves, but at 35, you should have found yourself, and you should be helping someone else. So the fact that you are now in this position, and what if I go for this dream and I don't succeed? Where will I be? And it's really a leap of faith. That's what I call it. You got to have like a leap of faith and believe that God put you here for another purpose.
I think it's following the actual dream. Like, I think you get to a certain point in your life, hopefully, and you say to yourself, oh, okay, I thought that was the dream that I was following, but really I misunderstood, and I'm really going to follow my dream now, which is just trying to understand my purpose and how I can make a difference, or how I can be more aligned with myself, or how I can be more fulfilled. And actually, like, making money is not enough. I want to actually impact the world in a positive way, or whatever.
And for some people, it could be just, how do I keep from drowning myself in the bathtub? Like, they hate their lives so much that every day is like torture. Like, what I'm saying? I am miserable, and I'm taking it out on every single person. Like, I'm going to the store and they ask me, paper or plastic. Don't ask me no question.
Right.
You just the most random things, you're just pissed off because you're miserable. This one thing is affecting your whole life. You realize you got to make a change, because this is not how you are meant to spend your life, but it's spilling out into everything and changing the way I want to be happy. Like I was saying the example before, like when I used to go to, when I go out shopping or whatever the case may be, there's days when I'm feeling good, money's right, the day's sunny, and you see somebody over there and they're looking for something and they even ask you for help, but you might ask them, you're like, hey, what are you looking for? What do you like? You try to ask them to find something or to help them out or whatever the case may be. But I know, like, so for instance, like going back to my example, like, it's a nice day, you're shopping and someone's looking for, I don't know, they're looking for scarves or something. And you're over there in a whole other part of the store, and I'll go all the way to the other side. What are you looking for? Can I help you? You're so friendly. And then on those bad days or when life ain't going right, and they could ask you a question directly, and you're like, I don't know, don't ask me nothing. You're such a different experience. And I find the days when I'm so willing and overly friendly and talking to the cashier, no problem, girl, take your time. I know I ordered that coffee an hour ago, but I'm sure you got it handled. This water is just sitting just fine. I'm a little late to work. Don't worry. Everybody has those days where everything's sweat on your back. But I think that's when you're walking in your purpose and you're doing, I guess you're more aligned. But when something's off, 5 minutes late, and you want to, it's something else. That's how I always feel. Like when life is not right. And also, just to get back to it, I wanted to just get on these quick topics. Reasons to quit your job, and this is interesting to me. You're late all the time, or you're leaving early all the time. Did you ever experience that? Were you experiencing that towards the end?
Not with that job, but with my job now, I am, because I'm ready for something else now.
Oh, now you're ready to switch again? But you like teaching, but you just don't like the job? Because I thought teaching was, you said you were happy.
I like teaching. I'm ready to be in a position in which I can make more decisions.
Oh, okay. So you like the career, but a job in education.
In education?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So that was always her passion, right?
Yeah, that clue, that tip, that was one sign, that I'm experiencing now. But before, not really, just because if I'm already in Charlotte, North Carolina for a store, like I'm gonna get there, like I'm gonna be on time. I've traveled hours to get here. I can drive 10 more minutes, to the Walgreens. So no, but now,
okay. What about leaving early though? Did you ever say one day I'm just gonna be out of here a little early?
No, see, that job is different because it's a project. I am basically in charge of walking in when there's nothing on the shelves, and when I leave, I'm passing the first customer. Like,
got it.
Kind of. So I couldn't leave if I wanted to all the time. Sometimes, but never because I didn't like it. I enjoyed the work. I just knew that it was not part of who I was long term. Yeah.
What about complaining about your job and your coworkers to your friends and family?
Yeah. Everything aggravated me. And I just began to see some things, that I did not enjoy. I think I remember telling you that I was sent an intern to train. I worked in Indianapolis. I think this was 2012 Super Bowl. I don't remember when it was in Indianapolis. And they pulled me from another store to do a relocation and a remodel of a store. And they picked me to do it because they knew I could do it, right? They sent me an intern, and happened to be a young white kid. That's relevant. I'm not just saying that. He walked in, he was fresh on the scene, came in dressed like he was the CEO already. And I should have known something was up because I would wear not jeans, but I would wear maybe khakis and, a polo style shirt or something, because it was a construction zone, for the most part. And I noticed that when people would ask him questions, instead of him saying, hey, let's ask Precious, he would try to answer all wrong. He didn't know what he was doing. He was supposed to be an intern. I was supposed to be training him. So this is a major, major store, because when we finished, they were going to shoot a commercial, multi-million-dollar commercial in the store. And then that commercial was going to be viewed and played during the Super Bowl locally.
Oh, wow.
So, and everyone knows the Super Bowl commercials are a huge deal.
Yeah,
multi-million
dollar. It was a
deal.
big deal.
Yeah.
And so I have that on my resume too. And so it was a big deal. And I knew that they didn't just send me. There's one of those things where I'm like, I know I've done a good job, and they picked me to do this, and I'm training. So when everything was all said and done, and it was released in our company newsletter or our company website type thing about this store and the Super Bowl commercial, and the picture, they had a picture of the project coordinator and the name, and they used the young white intern. They did not use me as the person who completed the project. And I had experienced a few other things. That was it for me though, because there was no mistaking who did that store. Like, there's no error.
They called you to do it.
Yes. I'm the seasoned project coordinator here. There was no question that he was the son of some big VP something director. And he came in with the attitude of, I'm not an intern. And I just feel like, I don't know what he was told before he got there, but he came through the door like he was already in charge. I was too busy doing my job to pay attention. So when things like that have begun to happen, I did complain a lot. I started saying this and that. And then I'm not a talker. I'm not going to just continue to talk about something without making a move. So I wasn't just gonna keep saying I hate this, because I don't have to tolerate.
Did they have a reason when you told them that you were how you were slighted? Did they have a reasonable reason or excuse?
Oh, just oversight, or like that we really appreciate you, and we know what you do, and it shouldn't matter. Yes, it does matter. If it didn't matter, then you would have gotten my picture correctly.
Exactly.
I knew for a fact that you put you, maybe not you who I'm speaking to, but somebody, and you're the head of this department, and you should be. And so I need you to print.
Well, here's the gotcha. How you know what they really meant. Even if they wanted him to be there, since you were the project coordinator and you're in charge and you're the seasoned person there, even if that was the case, they would have told you about the photo shoot. Were you told about it, or were you just saw it when it was already completed? Well, that's some sneaky stuff right there.
It was a posed picture. It wasn't like an inaction that somebody took. So this was a plan. Like I'm not done by. So I knew what it was, and it was just really, really, it hurt. It was hurtful because I had worked really hard, and I knew like the years I sacrificed for this, right? And I could see it. Well, I couldn't see, but I could hear in my direct supervisor's voice. I think he was up. I think he felt bad about it, but not bad enough to fix it.
Right. So if it was done, it was done. Just an apology.
I think that it's so important that you set a boundary. Like there are certain things that happen that you were like, all right, that sucks, but it happened and I can deal with it. That sucks, it happened, I can deal with it. That's challenging. Like this happened, that's crossing a line, and that's not okay. And I think that it's so important that you like put up a boundary and you stuck with it, and you ended up like leaving the job.
I think, and I felt too like do not try to play me like I can't find something else. Don't try to play me like I have to stay here with y'all, because I don't. I felt almost like that. You think you can do this to me, and I'm gonna roll over and be like, okay, you don't know me. You have no idea. And it's not even about showing them that alone. It was about, okay, this is a sign to Precious. It's time to do your thing, because they don't value you enough to publicly acknowledge you. Now they value you enough to bring you there because you did it, and they knew you could get it done, but then they want to give the credit to, like, I was just, I don't know. It was
I've had so many fights in my career. That's another sign to quit. Job not challenging, or no growth, or no accolades. And accolades don't just come and thank you. It's like, I used to tell my boss, I appreciate the love, but the grocery store don't take your thank yous. I got to pay for these groceries. So if you can give me, when the grocery store and the rent and the landlord take your thank yous, then I'll bring the truck back and you pour them all in. But until then, I'm gonna show me the money. In the words of Jerry Maguire, show me the money. I need that money. I need that thank you on my check if it don't reflect. And I've had, in every job I've had, I've always had to
say that again.
Yes.
I need that thank you. I need
that thank you. I need to reflect that. That need to reflect in my check. I think I got to get my Johnny Cochran on. You gonna make something wrong.
Bars.
If it don't fit, well, if it don't fit, you gotta quit. Well, but it must reflect in my check. That's what I need to hear from my boss. And I used to, and ultimately they would pay me because I never tried to ask for anything I didn't deserve. I always asked for my worth, and I never did. But I always had to do like you did. I had to speak up because I felt like I'm a person that would rather eat crumbs with bums than steaks with snakes. I don't want to. Come
on with the bars.
But I don't want to be. Like, I can live on less money, and I'll find better, and I'll work better, and I'll work myself up. But I'm not going to sit here and make you rich, and you treated me bad. I mean, my companies, I had to fight for lunches, and they say it was so small. It was a fight, but I just felt like I was slighted because it was a mom and it was a family business. It was a father and a daughter, and I was the third person to come in. And it was just us running, and we were doing really well, but every day they would huddle together and they would get lunch together, leaving me over there on the side. And at first I didn't say anything. And if it was a bigger company, I would have never made us think about it, because me and the rest of the
look, when it comes to food, they know that they've you've got an issue there, and you're
when it comes to me and food, that's mistake number one. Like, I don't get any lunch, like we all eat or no one eats. So but it would just be something like, you feel slighted. Like I felt like every day, and I had to make a big stink about it. And I know people said, well, you think you're obligated? First of all, I worked at a job where they were able to feed us. They fed us every day because first of all, you don't realize what an expense, what ease you take off your workers when they don't have to think about what they got to eat that day. They can focus on the work. I don't got to worry about packing no lunch. I'm going to get this, whatever we got going on here. So I don't got to worry about that. That's extra time to worry about these clients and other things like that. So it's good for you. There's a bottom line to your business. That's how you always got to convince them, by the way. If you want your job to ever move for you, always show them the bottom line, how it's going to help their business. And, you know, when I start having fainting spells in the middle.
Not fainting spells.
When the lunch used to come and I used to, whew, I don't know. No, I didn't do that. But, you know, it just felt like I said, it felt like I was.
You?
Eventually, yeah. After that fifth fainting spell, after the paramedics came, they said we better ask him if he want a spring roll or something.
You are crazy.
This can't happen much longer. No, and they did for years. My boss is great. And one thing about my boss, he did a lot. We worked well together, and although he wasn't moving, he didn't move as fast as I wanted him to on a lot of things. He did move, and he did see my value, and we had reasonable debates. And sometimes they got heated, especially when I'm talking about that coin, but we were able to come together in a compromise. Did I get everything I always wanted? No, but he was willing to meet me because he saw my value and I brought value. And you have to sometimes demonstrate also your value, that kind of thing. But the last thing, which I think is funny about quitting, which I always say, which is the time you really know you need to go. And we don't say the F word here, we call it flushes. But when you give 0 flushes about your job, when it's time, like you don't care what happens, everything's a fight, you know, good morning is like, who told you it was good?
or for me, like I'm really dealing with that now. And I have to check myself on a daily. Yeah. It's kind of like you do something that you know you shouldn't do, and then dare somebody to say something to you. Like, yeah. So, and okay, you know, and then I'm like, Precious, you need to go. Like, because you need to respect your position while you're still here. Exactly. But if you're going to have this attitude, it's time to go. I don't think I ever got to that with that job, because remember, I'm remote. So, you know, I could deal more with the job because I was by myself. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have to see somebody every day, look over my cubicle or whatever it is, look in somebody else's office. I was remote. And then for those last 6 months, when they're sending an email like, hey, I need you to drive to, you know, this store, which might be an hour away, might be 10 minutes away, or might be, you know, 7 hours away, and pick up this fixture and then come back, because that's all they had for us to do. I didn't have to deal. Like, it was the best 6 months ever, because they also wanted me to live at home in Birmingham. And I'm like, I don't have a home. When they didn't want to pay for the hotel, and I'm like, you're going to have to, because I gave up my home to do this job.
So
I can't go live with my dad.
Yeah.
You can't tell me I got to go live with my daddy. You don't know the situation, even though I could have with no problem. But I'm like, no, I'm grown. I didn't even have a roommate in college. So I'm not going home. You're going to pay for this hotel. They did. And during that time is when I prepared myself, took my test, and I just started applying for jobs in Alabama. And at the time, since I was in Alabama, I was like, good, I can interview. I can do these things. And I didn't get any callbacks. Like, I applied to like 20 jobs. Which is basically 20 school districts. And well, some of them were overlapping. And I'm like, okay, they know I don't have the experience. They're nervous, whatever. And I opened up my search to counties and school systems that I initially didn't want to work in. And the 21st job that I applied for is the job I have now.
21st job. I like the fact you said that, because people think that it's going to be easy. It's going to be either going to have like, or, you know, or they're worried, but they're like, okay, once you make up your mind, it's not as easy. Even doing this podcast, I thought, you know, since I know how to talk, I'll just be talking. There's notes, there's formats, even this, you know, even though this is a great conversation, you know, there's always ways to make it better. And there's ways to improve yourself. You just don't, it's not as easy as picking up a mic, turning on the camera and go. But it feels that way. And I always say the best professionals make it look that way. That's how you know a professional, when they make it look so easy. Like LeBron shoots that basket so easy. I'm like, I could do that.
Negative.
Yeah, exactly. Let me go to the court. it's going to be a whole different experience.
Correct.
So I think, yeah. So I wanted to say, what would be your advice, though? I would definitely want to get your advice, Precious, on what would you say to someone else who's struggling? They're working a job right now they hate. They're living a life that is not authentic to themselves, and they have some roadblocks. And there's something like you. They knew what they wanted to do, but somehow they went on another road. What advice would you give them right now, that person over 35? If you could look into the screen and say, hey, you, what would you say?
Hey, you, and I'm talking to myself because I'm going through this again, but hey, you, you, do exactly what your heart desires, because you're not given a second shot at this life at all. It's not a dry run. It's not a rough draft. You have one life to live, and you need to live it for yourself. And I say, use the job that you have now as leverage to do whatever it is you want to do. So if you work for a corporation or a company and you want to leave to work for another one, then you begin to stack that resume, you begin to stack that money, because you don't know if you'll make the same money or not. You may make less. If you're working for someone and you want to become an entrepreneur, then you leverage that salary that you're making now in a way that's going to be useful. Cut out some stuff if you need to. The eating out, the extra trips, and the Amazon Prime and the Hulu and the Netflix. You don't need all three. Whatever it is, so that you can put yourself in a better position, and understand that just because you want to switch careers and you want to switch from one thing to another or one company to another, it may not be easy. And when you reach a point to where it's tough and it's hard and you're thinking, I'm second guessing this, like I should have stayed where I am because this isn't easy. Nothing that's worth having is easy at all. So it doesn't work that way. But
Yes.
when you feel in your heart that, when I first started teaching, I was still living like I was before, getting a massage every 2 weeks and these $80 nails. And I got that first teacher check and I was like, oh, they must have paid me for 2 weeks on here. What? I was like, I couldn't believe it, but I had substantial savings. And I realized right away, okay, you have to cut some things out. And it just didn't look easy. But when I walked into the school, I had such a completely different feeling. And I also would say to you, don't be afraid. Don't let yourself talk yourself out of it. My friend Tracy Osborne, I met her online. She does this women's empowerment type, well, not really women's empowerment, but she talks about how the inner bitch in us, the person in our heads that tell us that we can't do something, don't allow that person to get in your head and say, oh, you can't do this. I walked in a classroom full of high schoolers and had never taken even an education class. And if I would have stopped to think about that, I would have never done it. I moved to a town. I hadn't even heard of the town when they called me for the interview. And I was like, I could come tomorrow. What time? All right, now where is it again? Where? Yeah. And moved to a town, didn't know one person. And when I stopped to think about it was when somebody else mentioned it to me. I had never thought about it. And I'm glad I didn't, because I would have talked myself out of it. But I realized that traveling to those small towns set me up to live in a small town in which I didn't know anybody, in which I had to find somewhere to live. When I traveled with Walgreens, I had to find somewhere to live here. So just take a chance to appreciate where you are now, even if it's not what you want to do. Soak everything up, believe in yourself, and follow your heart. Your spirit never leads you wrong.
Wow, that is a mouthful. That was well said. I felt that some parts hurt, because when you talking about give up Netflix, like, whoo, give up this, sacrifice.
Impossible. Yeah, you know what I love about this story the most? I love that you're not saying like, I had a struggle and now I reached my dream and happily ever after. You're saying I had this happen, I had a struggle and I figured something out as part of it. And now I have to do that again because it's a journey. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to like get to the gold at the end of the rainbow and everything's going to be wonderful and happily ever after. It's like, you know, you're on to the next stage, and every single time you have those challenges, you can choose to grow from them or to just stay. So like you're choosing, okay, I love that. So now you're in education and you want to stay in education, but that specific job is just not working for you. What age are you teaching now?
I'm a special education teacher, 9 through 12. I'm in a rural town, which again, I didn't know anything about, but traveling to those, small towns helped me. And I love the town. I love the feel of it. I'm just in my position ready to be able to make more decisions and leverage my experiences. I feel sometimes like the people that are over me don't realize what I have, the experience that I'm coming with. So I just want a chance to be able to utilize that experience to make some real decisions and change happen. I'm really, really considering just being a consultant and just kind of just working for myself at this point. And it's hard because, as you mentioned earlier, I'm comfortable. I'm real comfortable where I am. I mean, I've been teacher of the year. I was one of the only, me and one of my students, we were 2019 Bezos scholars for Bezos Family Foundation, the only ones in the state of Alabama. I've been blessed in this position. So again, I'm faced with my dad's like, well, those people treat you great. Like, what are you doing now? I'm also trying to work on my podcast. I want to, open an Etsy shop. Like, I want to do whatever I want to do, and I'm going to figure it out. And I just want people to let me do that. I'm going to be fine, and it's always going to be for me. What else do I want to do? Because I get comfortable and I just need to be challenged more. So exactly. That is what I'm ready for. I'm ready for that.
Well, I think, and that brings me into what I want to also close every week. I want to have I think about things that need changing or things. So I have what I'm going to call the Good God Get a Grip Girl Award. And every week, someone that I think this week the Good God Get a Grip Girl.
Okay. Good God Get a Grip Girl. Okay.
Yeah. And this is for things that's going on in the world that I see that some people just need to get a grip. They need to get a hold of reality. They living outside of reality. I almost gave it to Shakana this week because she was acting crazy over this whole T.I. Tiny scandal, but I didn't want to get into that. Because she definitely needs to get a grip. But actually this week, this award goes to me and other people like me who are feeling like they are losing their true essence of who they really are during this pandemic. I lived in New York City because I love going out and my front door and experiencing a whole new world of people. But seeing people in person and talking with them was like my everyday thing. And now I can't even have a drink with them at my favorite karaoke bar. It's just a whole different atmosphere. I used to go to comedy clubs and concerts, and it made me feel a part of something. It gave me a purpose. I worked so hard to be able to live the life I wanted, and COVID-19 took away and what I thought made me me. And even getting up every day and being in an office environment, things that I took as mundane, now I yearn for them. It made me feel complete, and now I feel less than without them. And I have a smartphone, I have a Windows laptop, an Apple's laptop, a desktop computer, all the Zooming in the world, and I still feel less connected. So first of all, I want everyone to know, me and people like me to know, it's okay to feel this way. If you are like me and you have been beating yourself up pretty bad of late, stop it. Stop it right now. That hole that you're digging only gets deeper. You only dig that hole of despair deeper than it already is. Realize there are small changes we can do to feel better. Ask a friend for support, therapy, meditate, walk, change the scenery in your home if you're working from home. That will be more conducive to make you thrive. Not just live, but thrive. That's the most important part. And I think that's what a lot of us are missing. We're living, we're not thriving. We're just existing. And that's not good for most of us most of us didn't set up a life just to exist. We wanted more. So I just wanted to give that to you. Stop eating those heavy meals during the day also, because that's me as well. I eat a heavy meal during the day in the middle of the workday, and then I can crawl right into my bed because it's right there. There is things that we can do to feel better, and better days are coming. So keep the faith, keep the hope, start small where you are, and most importantly, good God, get a grip, girl.
I love it. I love that. That's going to be it for the show. People are going to be just walking around talking about, good God, get a grip, girl.
Good God, get a grip. Whenever you feel like, you just remember those words because they're going to help me. I'm speaking to you. And Precious, thank you so much for being our guest today. Ita, as always, this has been fun. Ethan's not going to let me ambush her. Now she's going to be ready for anything every time she comes on. She's like, oh God, what is Joe going to pull?
It's good. We just did it. We were talking about it, but you just have to do it sometimes.
Yeah,
Right.
like you said, pull it, launch. And that's another nugget that Precious gave us today. Launch. Don't wait till everything's perfect. It'll never be perfect. It'll never be exactly what we had an idea. We had a lot of it written down. It wasn't just happenstance. We had this figured out, but we were waiting for perfection. Perfection is not always, we can always try to reach for it, but get as close as we possibly can. Nobody's going to be Jesus. Don't mean we can't try to get as close as we possibly can to follow his example. And with that, good night. Thank you for our first show. Precious, thank you. Thank you. Love you guys.
You guys did great. You did great.
Thank you, Precious. Talk to you guys soon.
Nice to meet you.
Bye.
All right, I got to flush now. Let me get some privacy. I got to flush. Bye.